Well, I think 11% gain on the first trade is probably a number that would, for most IPOs, would be considered, what you would hope to achieve. But in the sense that this IPO, there's a lot of hype and enthusiasm, and a lot of people involved in this deal. I think maybe people were hoping for a bigger number.
I really like the fact that you started there because the headlines were crossing as of the first 30 minutes of trade. And the initial headline was that it was indicated to open at $175 a piece. And it's been steadily going down. We've gotten headlines about, now it's 174, now it's 172, now it's 170, all the way down to 150. Is that a bad sign?
Yeah, well, just to understand the process a bit better, I mean, Morgan Stanley is a stabilization agent for the IPO, and they also have the role of opening the IPO. But basically, that process involves bringing together all these buyers and sellers for this opening print, and you want to make sure that the opening print is sort of ideally as fair a price as you can get. And generally speaking, from what I'm told, that banks like to have about 10% of the deal size traded in that opening print. So I think you can see. The number there was around 60 million shares, and the IPO was 500. So it was about 10% of the stock basically went through in the opening print. And that's about standard, right? But that allows the banks to be sort of confident, I guess, that taking the buyers and the sellers together, the price that you're opening the stock at is the price that the market wants to pay. And then looking at the success of this first day trading, one measure of it will be like where the stock closed, and you want the stock to close near to or ideally above where it opens. You don't want it to you don't want to open the stock really high and then it end the day lower, because that would mean that a lot of people lost money. So that's the art of opening an IPO. But this is just all 1 day's trading, and it's many days ahead.
Yeah, exactly right. We got close to 100 million shares trading hands here. Again, about $159, $160 a share. Opened at 150 after pricing at 135 here. How long typically will we see, I guess, higher than usual volume when a company goes public? Does that all get kind of exercised the first day? Does it last a few days?
Yeah, I think from my experience, the first day will be the heaviest day for a while. I mean, the first few days will also be relatively heavy. I mean, SpaceX, the interesting thing with IPOs is that, the art of executing IPOs is to try and place the stock with as many long-term investors as you can, and investors that won't sell. But there's always a portion of the stock you want to get to people who are traders, because obviously we want some stock to be in the market for people to buy and sell, and not to sort of overly exaggerate the price if there's a real supply and demand imbalance. But I think they from the institutional book they allocated like 70, I think it was 70% of the deal to what they call long-only investors, or people who are. People are not traders, but you are going to have an element of the, as you know from your experience, you're going to have an element of the book that's got to go to people who are a bit more short term. But the first day will probably be the biggest day of trading. I mean, it may be different for SpaceX, but I mean, when you go and see SpaceX do maybe they'll do another stock sale in the future, or some sort of corporate event. There might be a day when it's higher, but this could be, it could be the highest day of trading for the stock.
It's interesting. I'm just looking at the Rich Go function on the Bloomberg terminal. Had Elon's stake in SpaceX valued at $135 a share, which placed him, again, farther away, the number one richest person on the planet with a net worth of $970 billion. Now with the rise in the price, he's well over a trillionaire. So there you go. That's also kind of an interesting event there in the world's history, I guess.
Yeah, on paper, of course.
On paper, of course, exactly right. This has to be, I'm going to call, we kind of trade like this today, you call this a successful IPO, and a successful historic IPO for many reasons, not the least of which is the dollars involved. That bodes well, I would think, for the Anthropics of the world, the OpenAIs of the world, which have also filed registration statements to go public. This has got to be a good sign.
Well, I think we'll see how the stock trades today. I mean, to be honest, coming out 11% out of the gate, you probably might be a little worried that it could drift back and maybe end not as well. But I think the banks have put a lot of work into this, so maybe they know that they can get it to finish around where it's opened here, or maybe there's some more enthusiasm from the rest of the day. But I think it shows you that 75 billion is. I mean, we've reported this as a huge number. It's a record deal, but I think even the senior person there at Goldman Sachs today, I saw them note, and something I've been thinking a lot about is that the numbers we talk about these days are so much larger than
Yes.
even a few years ago. We talk about trillions just offhand, and the amount of volume you see in the IPO market, we're talking. I think we're thinking globally maybe 300 billion, something like that if all these deals happen, and like that's a lot of money to raise, and their market cap's obviously much bigger, in the trillions, but the amount of money that they're sucking out of the market is a relatively small amount of, well below 1%. It's like, I think the number was something like 20 basis points or something. It's not that much money these days.
What do we know about the lockup period here? Typically, an IPO lockup is 180 days, 6 months. Before insiders can sell their shares. What do we know about this transaction?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a long answer to that question. It is a non-traditional lockup. Normally, you have a 6-month lockup, and everyone comes out and can trade at 6 months, and the stock falls as a result. But here, you've got to take into account this is a 24-year-old company.
Yeah,
so it's not like it's not like it had already had a very fairly developed shareholder base. So, there's a logical argument that you can maybe not have the standard lockup, but they still have, put some standards around it by making sure that the company's going to have to report its first set of earnings before people start to get out. But even then, there'll be a small proportion of the people who'll be able to sell, and then a little bit later, a bit more. But the whole lockup sort of basically comes off over a 1-year period, and Elon Musk himself is locked up for a year or so, and he probably wouldn't be selling, I don't think, in any substantial size in any case. But the point is, I guess, that he's got a lot of pre-IPO investors alongside him there, and there are definitely some of those investors who aren't investing in the IPO and do want to get out because they only invest in private companies. There are other investors who are continuing. So that there's all different types of investors involved in an IPO like this, and some of them are going to want to sell, and some of them are going to hang on, and it's just going to be a bit different. But the lockup structure is quite complex. It stretches over a year. There are multiple. I think it's 8 to 10, might even be more periods when a little bit of stock comes out, like 7% here, 8% here, and it's all outlined in the prospectus, but it's quite lengthy and well considered.
So how about the retail component? Do we know generally how much kind of went to the retail slice?
Yeah, so I think if we look at the IPO as like 75 plus the green shoe, which will be exercised because the stock's traded up, will likely be exercised. I think our understanding was that 20% of the deal went to retail, so that would be a little bit less than $20 billion. The demand was more than $100 billion, and
wow.
You have to, when you talk about retail, there's different types of retail. There's the rich high net worth customers of the banks, and then there's the Robinhood. There's the whole spectrum. There's the Robinhood customers. I mean, if you talk about the Robinhood customers, from all the what people have said this morning, it sounds like all hundreds of thousands of Robinhood customers got at least a share, and that was the case probably with some of the other digital platforms as well. But a lot of people are disappointed because they only got one share. But maybe now they look at and see 10% gain, maybe they're not so disappointed. I don't know.
Looking at just Tesla, stock's down 2% here today, down 13% for the year, up 22% for a trailing 12-month basis here. And of course, one of the storylines out there, Anthony, is that Elon's just for no other reason, just for keeping everything neat and tidy, just kind of have SpaceX acquire or roll up Tesla into SpaceX. I know that was discussed out there in the marketplace. Do we expect to hear anything from the company on that?
Well, it's unclear. I think that's something that people are expecting to happen. It might have some industrial logic, I think, particularly because there's different things that pretty big ambitions that Tesla has around robotics, which might make more sense in a business like SpaceX, with a business like SpaceX, where there's so many of these big projects and ambitions that they're trying to pursue, and maybe robotics and space together makes a lot of sense, and but I think it might be a while before we hear about that. I mean, I think people do expect that to happen, but it has to make sense for based on how these stocks are trading and whatever. But I think the main argument perhaps for that happening from from a more cynical perspective is that it would allow Elon Musk to potentially take control of this bigger entity, because Tesla doesn't have the dual class structure and SpaceX does. But I think a deal like that would take a while. I think the other extraordinary thing about SpaceX, though, is that we've really seen that Elon Musk gets stuff done quickly and quicker than everyone else. I mean, even the press releases, the filings, the road show, the way the S1 was drafted and filed. Everything happened a lot quicker than the average company, that's for sure.